Hello, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. So please take a seat. We have a full agenda today, so I'd like to get started on time. Wow, why? All right. First, thank you everyone for coming today. I really appreciate you coming out for this. Got a full agenda.
Excuse me, Larry, did you ring the bell?
Yes, I did.
Yes, you did. Okay, I thought we all stood up when you rang the bell. No.
Not yet. We're not quite there yet.
Not anymore?
I'm glad to stand up with you.
I wouldn't sit down quite yet.
Everybody stand up.
We can stand up. It's not required.
So to get this started, if everyone please stand for the invocation.
It's the Pat Bowles. Everybody stand.
Tom? Hey, John, I have you for the invocation today.
I'm on the invocation list. Yes, I am.
I'm going to invite Tom to our invocation. Say for the pledge.
There is no less likely person to give an invocation. First of all, seriously, I would like to ask for 20 minutes of silence for those people who've lost their lives in Ukraine on both sides of the line.
20 minutes?
I said that wrong. I meant 20 seconds. Thank you. When I was asked to do the prayer by Pastor David, I really questioned his intellect. I am probably one that's not particularly good at prayers. I am a man of faith, but praying is not something I do easily in public. David sent me a nice piece about categories of prayers, and there are three, as I understand them. One is requesting help. Another is, wow, what a wonderful universe. And the third is thanks. And these three categories tend to be the three categories in which we have prayed. And by the way, I think that we all entreat in the worst of times the Lord to help us. And that is a great aspect of the Lord. We hope he hears all of such prayers. And the universe is such that it is a wow. It is a wonderful place to be. And we get to explore that. And we find ourselves in a place of wonderment almost every day. And there is still goodness in this world, although sometimes it is hard to find. And then there is thanks. And we are so lucky to live in a world where compassion is a shared quality, that we not only get to act with compassion ourselves, we get to show it ourselves. We are so blessed to have our friends, my fellow Rotarians, and all of us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tom. Just a quick note. Did anybody have any changes for the minutes from last week? If not, we'll keep moving on. Membership birthdays. I have Donna this week, April 17th, and Julie Scales on April 27th. Also for our anniversaries, that Reverend David Sheeler tonight. Where are you at over there? 4 years with our club. Congratulations. At this point, Chuck, if you're ready, we'll now come to welcome guests and happy bucks.
Hey, everybody.
Let's see if we have a microphone up and working.
That works a little bit. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Dunedin. We would normally begin with guests and visitors, and so I'm looking around and I'm thinking, visitors. We have a visitor with us. Yay! Stand up, tell us what brings you here.
Hello, my name is Sallie Parks. I know most of you. If you don't know me, I am with the Palm Harbor Rotary Club. I'm also your area assistant governor. So I have 6 clubs underneath me that I talk to, work with, and talk with Rotary presidents and president-elect. So love coming to this club. You're one of my favorites. I shouldn't be saying that. It's always fun to see you. You've had a great year, and I'm so proud of you. So glad to see you.
It's good to have a visit from the higher ups, the supervisory structure and all of that. And we have some visitors at this table. Oh my gosh, we have visitors at this table. Don Lowell is going to stand up and introduce our guests.
These are my guests, Ken and Laura Huff, and they expressed interest about Rotary a while back and came to the peaceful celebration. And so here they are in a meeting. I'm so happy to have them next today.
Say hello, Mark. Hello. Thank you. A few words.
My name is Ken Huff, and I go to First Presbyterian Church, so we're well acquainted with David Cheever, and he was very great in welcoming us when we came 2.5 years ago to the area. We moved down here to be closer to our son after our son retired. And it's a wonderful area, wonderful people, and wonderful things that you all do. So we're really looking forward to getting to learn more about the Rotary Club and what you all stand for and what you do. So thank you for inviting us tonight.
And we come from Shelburne Falls, Massachusetts.
Ah, we left the ice behind.
We should tell them the secret. The secret is in Dunedin, there are no snow shovels in Dunedin.
Hi there. I am Courtney Vandenberg and I work with Commissioner for Justice. So I'm just here to see you all, say hello, and travel along.
Welcome. She started with a speaker, and that's a second introduction. We're happy to have you along with us today.
No, I've already eaten. I'm good.
All right. All right.
Sallie tried.
Sallie tried? Oh, yeah, that's good. Okay, we go from introduction of guests to Happy Bucks, which is the Rotary tradition in this club of putting up $1 to tell us something that's happening, that's going on, that's good or whatever in your life, family circumstances, travel. Oh, guess what? Somebody wants to send some of the service.
I'm just happy because my family has been here this week. That's the first time down from the north.
That's awesome. Wonderful, good. Glad to have you down from the north. And Jeff Rhodes is coming in. Hello, Jeff. Dr. Craig. Does anyone else have a happy buck for today? Oh, okay. We have 2 happy bucks. All right.
I have $2 happy because I get traveled enough today, Dave and Don. Yeah.
All right, that's always good. That's always good. And I see Dave Schiller had $1. One-upsmanship here. Thank you.
No, just so much to be thankful for. Thankful to have Ken and Lauren here and have our congregation well represented here in Rotary Club today. This is a delight. It's going to be a delight to be able to induct Dave Bramley and be his sponsor into the club today. And also, don't mean to embarrass this guy would be here, but many thanks to Jeff Rhodes. I won't tell the whole story, but dealing with the family in the area, they needed good, reliable transportation, and Jeff has been, and his team have been fantastic to work with,
Hey, and we have Tom with us. Happy buck.
Well, now that Dave has introduced his sponsor with a happy buck, I have to introduce my new inductee with a happy buck. And all of you know Don Bergeron from the Cleveland Island State Park, and he's over a number of parks. 4 parks. So anytime you want to go parking, Hold on. Yes, and we will be inducting Don as a new member today. Thank you.
All right, now we move on. Yes, Sarah.
I'm just happy to be back. I'm Stan. I'm happy to be back here and not be on Zoom. Takes me love it. And so it's nice to see everybody's beautiful faces. This is Jen. And everybody, it's wonderful to have a great rest of your week.
Okay. Anyone else waving the dollar at me? So I'm going to wave my dollar. I put it in the packet here. I was traveling this last week, and I want you to know I'm down to the last little bit of gas in my tank. I came through Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, and so on. And in Georgia, the governor and the legislature have waived the gas tax. I am cruising around on my last bit of $3.57 gas. I can't tell you how busy the gas pumps were in Georgia. So, good times. Oh, we want to do the drawing for our 50-50. And let's see, I think we'll have the past president to make a drawing here. Pick a card, pick a ticket. Okay, this week a red ticket wins. So I know. It's unfortunate. Okay, let's start out with 988. You're still in the game at 988. And the last three are 6, 1, 2.
I think I won.
Oh, okay. Okay, come on out here.
Go on. I'll get the card, right?
Yeah, fix the card in the card.
Okay.
Okay. King of Diamonds, he wins $10.
I thought that should be good.
No, you get $10. Everybody gets $10 right under the new rules. Okay, back to you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. At this point, we'll begin our program. I invite Sallie to introduce our speaker. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you.
President Larry, this is a group that's having too much fun today, so settle down here. We have, my school mark. Now let me come out. So we have the pleasure of, I have the pleasure of introducing Chair of the County Commission, Charlie Justice, who is with us today. And I've had the good fortune of knowing Charlie for a long time, probably longer than we both care to remember. I think it's about 30 years because he was the aide to Representative Lawrence Hafner when I first knew him. And then he morphed into running for office and he represented us in Pinellas County in the House of Representatives, and then went on to the Senate and represented us at that time, and now he's representing us as a Pinellas County Commissioner. I know Charlie for several things, though. He also is very active in the MPO, the PSTA, the economic development, the TBC, a whole list of things. But the most important one is that he and I served together on the Area Agency on Aging for Pasco Pinellas, and he is a real asset to that board, as he is to all boards. But what I love him for the most is that he is a champion of historic preservation, and he has put together a upcoming event, May or June, I think it's in June, that is gathering together the people regarding historic preservation. So we're all talking to each other with the county and all of the cities and various communities that have historic reasons to be there. So Charlie, welcome to this wild and crazy club. We are looking forward to your remarks. Speak loudly because we're on Zoom too with other people.
Very good. Thank you.
afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
There we go. Well, let me thank Sallie for the kind introduction. And Sallie is incredibly respected for her long years of service, not only as a county commissioner, but in many other walks with the college and the community. And when, I don't know when you wrote it, Sallie, but Sallie put together about a one-page page of advice for county commissioners, and really for any politician. And it talks about how you should serve the public, that you're not serving yourself, you're serving your public. Anyway, that page still gets recirculated annually among the county commissioners because we value the words and we value the wisdom. So thank you very much, Sallie. And yeah, absolutely. I also, there we go, that's a little bit better. I also want to take a point of personal privilege and recognize my good friend Tom Anderson. Tom and I served in the Florida House together, and probably one of the strongest, most independent voices that we had from Pinellas County was Tom Anderson. He voted how he believed, and he represented the people well. Tom and I, you know, the life of a legislator is very glamorous. They put you up in really fancy hotels when you go to Tallahassee for committee weeks and things. And so Tom and I had breakfast every morning at the La Quinta on Appalachian Parkway before we go to committee meetings. And I got to know him well and really appreciate his service for our community as well. Yeah, absolutely. Before I hit a few topics, I always like to refresh because when I go to groups, and I know this is a very well-educated, different group. When I go to a lot of groups, people go, Pinellas County Commission. We have a Pinellas County Commission. What is a Pinellas County? What does the commission do? So it's not the mayor. I know that. I know who the mayor is, but what's a commissioner? Pinellas County, we have nearly 1 million folks now. If you've been on a road, you know we have nearly 1 million folks living here. And we have about 600,000 change that live in one of our 24 cities. That means the other 300,000 or so folks live in unincorporated Pinellas. That's your Palm Harbor, East Lake, Feather Sound, Tierra Verde, Lellman, and a big swath of unincorporated Seminole. For those folks, the Pinellas County Commission is their local government. We are their city council. And we have certain roles and responsibilities for those folks as far as making sure there's fire and police and water, those type of basic services. And then we have certain responsibilities as put on us by our charter and by the Florida Constitution that we are responsible for countywide for 1 million people. And that includes budgeting, emergency services. And last time I was chairman in 2016, I learned that we were responsible for mosquito control. And you think, no, it's not really a big deal. But in 2016 was when we had our Zika outbreak. And I learned everything about mosquito control and the life of a Zika mosquito more than I ever wanted to know before. Well, that was just the range of services and responsibilities that we had. Pinellas County Commission, we have 7 commissioners, 3 commissioners that we elect at large. So they have to live in a district, but they run countywide. I'm one of those folks. Janet Long and Pat Gerard are the other 2 at large. And then we have 4 single member commissioners, and that's your Dave Eckers, Karen Seal, Kathleen Peters, and Renee Flowers. They live in a particular district, and they're only voted on by folks who live in that particular district. As a commission, we hire 2 folks. We hire a county attorney, obvious responsibilities there. She has a staff of about 40 folks. And a county administrator, and he has a staff of about 2,500 folks. That's a lot of people overseeing. But for when you rate it out to population, it's about the same staffing levels as we had in 1989. The responsibilities haven't changed dramatically. We have a $2.9 billion budget. That's a few dollars more than when Sallie was there. What's interesting is that everyone thinks that property tax is the main driver of our budget, and it is obviously very important to all of us, but our property taxes are 22% of our budget. The rest comes from other sources, grants, state, federal aid, enterprise funds, things, other taxes. So I've been doing a lot of 2021 in review speeches in the last few weeks. It's for whatever reason, the calendar has coincided. And a lot of what I've been talking about is in 2021, was kind of when we started to we went through COVID, and we started to put COVID a little bit in the rearview mirror. And it's in some ways it seems like yesterday, and in some ways it seems like we've been dealing with COVID for a decade. But it's really been about from last month actually, almost to the day, 2 years
since the first of those executive orders came out from the governor's office, those executive orders that put us on basically on house restriction, shuttered businesses, closed theaters, limited to groups of 10, those kind of things, limited the group size that you could be in, limited the borders of Louisiana and folks driving down 95 from New York, those kind of restrictions that the governor put in place. And our staff, I just really have nothing else. If you walk out of here with nothing else today, know that you have a dedicated group of employees. Forget the commission, but the 2,000 plus employees that work in Pinellas County, they stepped up and in such an incredible way to respond to COVID. We're fortunate in some ways that we prepare every day for a Cat 5 hurricane. So we had staff in place to kind of be ready for emergency situations. And so they took some of that knowledge that they knew and that preparation that they had for those hurricanes and translated it into being responsive to the COVID. We've received and distributed over $17 million in emergency rental assistance from the federal government. That's 2,000 households that received some help. $24 million for individuals for rent and utility assistance through the CARES program, partnered with Tampa Bay 211. And we, for us, those that are like policy, while some of these numbers are interesting, just the sheer volume of what we did, our emergency management fulfilled 2,500 requests, totaling 5 million personal protective equipment items. Remember in those early days, everyone wanted the gowns and the masks and the gloves. Someone had to procure those, someone had to rent a warehouse to store those, someone had to make sure that we could find those. 1 million surgical masks, 195,000 N95 masks, 3.2 million sterile gloves, 14,000 self-test kits, 91,000 gowns, 17,000 face shields. Our government staff, partnering with our EMS folks out in the field, led the way as far as getting out with senior facilities. We know we have hundreds of senior facilities in Pinellas County. That's where we were most worried about. If you remember those early days in the Seminole Square residences, that's where we had one of our worst outbreaks. Our EMS folks, we sent our staff and our EMS folks out to make sure that they had the equipment that they needed, that they were following infection protocols. We learned that there was a lot of work to do in some of those areas, and that our staff has been partnering with DOEA from the state government to try and get all those folks the training they needed. Forget COVID, it was training they needed, just period. So some of the good things that did come out of it. Pinellas was recognized for our administrative response from the National Accounting Association, and we continue to deal with the after effects. We received $189 million in ARPA funds. That goes towards infrastructure for areas of funding that you lost during COVID, or it goes into communities that hardest hit by COVID. So some of the areas of Palm Harbor, Lellman, Seminole, we'll see some of those funds immediately. If you know government, we measure everything. Prior to COVID in 2019, we had about a 3.4% unemployment rate. Obviously that changed during 2020, but back in 2021, we dropped, and now today our unemployment rate sits at 2.8%, and we have about 500,000 people employed in Pinellas County. That is the highest it's ever been, lowest rate, the highest number of employees it's ever been in the history of Pinellas County. In 2020, we weren't sure what was going to happen with our budget. We rely so much on sales tax and visitors, and like I said, 20% on property tax. We created basically a 2-year budget. We planned out for 2 years. And on the administrative side, the side that the county commission and county administrator control, we actually cut our spending. We didn't hire, we didn't fill positions, we reduced our costs. Our budget increases were solely from the constitutional officers, the clerk of the court, the tax collector, and really the sheriff, the county court, and the jails. Those costs don't go away. In fact, those costs just went up. And so those are the areas that the cost went up. We were fortunate economically that it wasn't much worse in those areas. Again, I mentioned we have, fast forwarding to now, we have our current budget, I mentioned $2.9 billion. We actually, this past budget that we're living in right now, we reduced our millage rate. We were the only local government entity to roll back our tax rate as much as we did. Most in local governments, what happens is, if you're at 2.5 mils, you just keep it at 2.5 mils, and then property values go up. You pay more taxes, based on your cap and all of the safer homes and those kind of things. But you pay more, so the government collects more money. What we did was we actually lowered our rate to bring our budget collection and taxes down, so that it wouldn't be like, well, we didn't raise the rate. We actually lowered the rate. We still brought in a little bit more money because we didn't lower it all the way down to what they call a rollback rate, which would be, if I'm getting too deep in the weeds, let me know, Sallie. But what would that be is if you roll it back to whatever percentage you need to collect the exact same dollar amount that you collected last year. Well, we weren't able to do that completely because we had some backlogs on roads and sidewalk paving and other projects. And there was a couple of commissioners that wanted to roll it all the way back, but to raise the gas tax in order to subsidize the transportation fund. I can imagine how popular raising the gas tax would be right now. So we did not do that. We actually, there's a cap on how high you can raise the gas tax in state law at a county level. We still have 5 cents left in that cap. Pinellas has not raised it up to the max. You can't say the same for any of the counties surrounding us, just FYI. So if the rate for gas is the same at the county line, both sides of Pinellas Pasco, someone is making a couple pennies there per gallon for you. I want to talk about a couple other areas. We spent quite a bit of time and emphasis on improving our stormwater system. Obviously, what happened in St. Pete back in 2015, nobody wants to see repeated. So we put a focus on stormwater and flood control because we have done so much on doing that. That's simply clearing ditches, getting drainage out, improving some of the infrastructure there. Those in the area affected by us saw a 35% reduction in their flood insurance rates because we got into a better rating by FEMA. Now, the rates are still going up with flood insurance anyway, but at least we're trying to do our part to make sure that it's not on our side. We're clearing the ditches so that hopefully the flooding is controlled. And most importantly, if we do get hit with a bad storm, the flooding is a little bit more handled. Let me just talk a little bit about tourism, because that's something folks like to hear about. In 2019, we shattered every record we had. In 2020, we went the other way and shattered every record we had in a bad way with the shutdowns. But to tell you that we are back is an understatement. Our airport, our St. Pete Clearwater Airport, has expanded to 65 nonstop destinations and added 2 new airlines. That is the most in the history of the airport. We had 260,000 passengers through our airport in July, marking it the busiest month in the history of Pinellas County. When we were in this pandemic, we were worried about what that would do to our tourism market. And in 2021, our collections were up 75% over 2020, which is really not much because 2020 was so bad, but they were 30% higher than that record-breaking 2019. We collected $72.5 million in bed taxes in 2020. To give you an idea, when I first came on the commission, we collected about $30 million a year in bed tax. We're over double that. In 2021, we received 15 million visitors to Pinellas County. And again, if you drive Gulf to Bay, you probably saw 14 million of them. They have a direct visitor spending of $5.5 billion in Pinellas and an economic impact of $9 billion. The visitor industry payroll is $2.8 billion, accounting for about 91,000 jobs. That's down actually from our high a few years ago, about 100,000 jobs that rely on tourism, hotels, restaurants, others. But it's up from about 60,000, which was our low during the pandemic. So we lost about 40,000 jobs in the tourism industry. You can see we still have 10,000 if we were going to just catch up to where we were. Speaking of tourism, the bed tax, those that pay the hotel tax, we get about 14 million per penny on bed tax. And in Pinellas County, we have a hard, fast rule of what's called 60-40. So 60% of the funds that we bring in can be spent on operating our Convention and Visitor Bureau and marketing the destination. That's what the tax was created for initially. And we have 40%, which is allowed to be spent on capital projects. And for Pinellas, we set aside half a penny, so $7 million currently a year for beach nourishment, because we know that the number one reason folks come to Pinellas County is our beaches. And so we have to make sure that our beaches are fulfilled there. The other areas that state law, and this is very prescriptive in state law about what you can spend this money on. You can't just go and hire more fire or police on it. But you can use a portion for cultural facilities like Ruth Eckerd Hall or the Dolly Museum or the Clearwater Aquarium, or you can use it for sports stadiums like the county did to partner with the city of Dunedin for the Blue Jays renovation, the Phillies Stadium on US 19, and we paid it off long ago, but also the renovations to Tropicana Field back about 10 years ago. So And if you really want to hear some interesting numbers, my assistant Courtney Vandenberg, who we met earlier, is going to drop some brochures at the table, which will get to some really nitty-gritty of numbers. If you're really interested in knowing that we replaced 23,000 feet of pipe in our utility system, or we produced 6.93 billion gallons of reclaimed water, 18 billion gallons of safe water, that we issued 28,000 permits and inspected 72,000 building projects in Pinellas County, and then we increased our services to local veterans to over 5,000 local veterans served, an increase of 15% prior to the year before. So you can throw that in there with resiliency, sea level rise, affordable housing, behavioral health, transportation, transit, stadiums, and dramatic improvements that we're working on in the Upper area. That is the day in the life of a county commissioner. And so with that, lots of other things, but I'd like to hear what's on your mind and take a few questions while I still have a few minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner. We've got a policy, as you all know, about non-politicization of meetings, and that policy was passed 2 years ago. And we bring in elected officials so we can learn more about the community. But just keep in mind, as you ask your questions, they're not an opportunity for political statements. And so I will recognize questions, and if somebody starts going across the line, I may ask you to cease and desist. So with that being said, I'll give you back the mic and our guest, Sallie.
Hi, so you mentioned that unemployment is lower, which we all know because it's hard to hire. And housing is tighter. One of my challenges, and I have staff and a lot of entry-level staff in Palmer, that we're trying to hire more people, but they can't afford to live in Pinellas. But now you're getting more and more expensive as they go into Pasco. Some of them are having $300 or $400 added to their rent as they re-up their leases. And you get into, and I've lived in Martha's Vineyard and different places, you get into those kind of communities, and Pinellas is kind of turning into that, where you outprice the ability for your support, your operational type folks, to be able to live in those areas to help support the hospitals or restaurants or just regular businesses. And how are we, and I've heard some stuff on the news about affordable housing, but how are we going to manage that and help these folks?
Yeah, it's something that we think about a lot, not only affordable housing, but just a plain affordability of life in Pinellas County. We don't want to be a place where rich folks have a condo and everybody else, we ship in our support staff. That's not what we want. Not as someone who was born and raised here and grew up here, and I want my kids to have that same opportunity. When we passed the Penny for Pinellas in 2017, with 83% of the vote, by the way, that the public voted for a tax increase, we guaranteed in that 4.15%, about $83 million, would go towards helping with affordable housing. And I know some people hear affordable housing, they think we're going to build Capri Green right next door. And affordable housing, that's not what it means anymore. It's really, we started using this term attainable housing. And the way that we function, the way that we partner in this, is we will use those monies that we have, we will buy the land where we can buy the land, and then we partner with the developer, and we say, okay, you're going to build X number of units. Y number of those units have to be at a certain rate, and we usually it's 60% of area median income, 80% of 120% of area median income, some kind of scale like that. That's our primary resource. We have no ability to put in. I know some cities are talking about rent control and some of those type of things that maybe New York had. We have no ability to do that. State law allows you to direct control, except for luxury apartments, but the statutes haven't been looked at so long that a luxury apartment is anything over $250 a month. So that's how long ago since it's been the state legislature has really reviewed these statutes. So we buy the land, we partner with the developer, we keep the land in public ownership, and we say that we're going to have those rates in perpetual motion going forward. The other way that we do it is if a developer comes and says, I have this parcel of land, it's zoned for 30 units. I really think we could build more here, with the new spacing of people. It's on a bus line. We don't need as many cars. Whatever. We'll say, okay, we'll give you what's called a density bonus, but X number of those units again have to be in those market rates. And I didn't bring the chart with me that tells me that how that lands up 16% or 80%. But we're really talking about people making $45,000, $50,000 a year that would qualify for some of these restricted living. So we're not talking about Capri Green we're talking about beautiful developments. We just opened one a couple weeks ago called Skyway Lofts on 34th Street in St. Petersburg, and it's a beautiful setup. Not the biggest one, and it's not maybe one that you would want to raise your family as far as having a lot of space for kids, but as far as our folks that you're talking about, our nurses, our entry-level employees, it's a great spot for them to get started and eventually hopefully save that. We also partner with groups like Habitat for Humanity, where we had a big swath of land out in the Dansville area in unincorporated Largo that we got from the federal government back in the 90s. If those of you who have lived here a long time, when the tornadoes ripped through that area and just tore everything up, the federal government came in, took ownership, rehoused folks. Long way, we got the property. That property had been sitting in county hands just forever. So we said we don't want to be landlords of an empty lot anymore. We partnered, we gave some to Habitat, we sold some to Habitat at our friends and family rate, and we got them into full-time ownership for folks that, and those folks, Habitat is 80% of the AMI. So those are the tools that we have in the toolbox right now. But your point is right on the money.
Sallie.
Was legislation passed this year that causes any concerns or issues with the county commission?
Remember, there's no politicization here.
Well, let me say, because I don't want to just be negative, because we had folks in pretty significant positions of authority in Tallahassee, we got state funding for some projects that we never would have before. Now, some of that was federal money that came down and just passed through, but we got a lot of funding for a lot of projects, and we were grateful for our legislative delegation doing that. There are two bills that are very concerning to us. One is a bill that says if a local government puts an ordinance on that affects a business by 15% of profit, the ordinance can get sued, the business can sue and get rid of it. We don't know what that means yet, but it could be safety. But anyway, it throws a bucket of cold water on any kind of thing that we do at an ordinance level. The second issue that I think Sallie was talking about is that I read about in the paper today. How about that? I read about in the paper today is there's a bill that changes the way that we elect county commissioners and bills. And it was part of the big election bill that the governor signed yesterday. This has his elections force and some other things in there. But way back at the back of the bill, there's a portion that says that commissioners in single member districts, and that would be, we have 4 of them, in a redistricting year, which we just did a redistricting year last year where we redrew our boundaries. And by redrew, I mean we tweaked it just a hair, not major shifting like the state legislative seats, that they have to run again this November. So 2 years ago, this really affects 2 of our commissioners, Commissioner Seal and Commissioner Flowers. In 2020, the people of Pinellas voted for Commissioner Flowers and Commissioner Seal to have a 4-year term. This would say the legislature can just cut their term in half and make them run again. And so the people in Tallahassee, some of the legislators in Tallahassee, I saw on social media today, are saying, oh, they just want to get out of running again. Well, they ran, and they got elected to a 4-year term as prescribed in the Florida Constitution, which says county commissioners shall have a 4-year term. And so, anyway, there will be discussion at this afternoon's county commission meeting about whether we are going to challenge this bill in the court, and so we'll see. We don't like to sue. We don't like to sue anybody. We certainly don't like to sue another body of government, but that may be where we need to do to stop this illegal legislation from going forward. So, thank you for the question.
Anyone else? I have a question for
Yes, sir.
you, Commissioner. Last year, we suffered from red tide, unlike any year I can recall living here. And it may be that a cause of that was from another county or area within the Bay Area. What is our commission doing regarding the red tide issue?
Well, I'm no scientist, but I would tell you that yes, the Piney Point situation in Manatee County absolutely was a portion, if not the majority, of the cause of our red tide outbreak last year. Those who have lived here forever, we know we have a natural cycle of red tide that happens every once in a while. But we had it pretty bad several years ago. We had it pretty bad last year because of this. The timing is, and it's something, I forget the numbers, but it's something like, it's like you took 500,000 bags of fertilizer and just dumped it in the bay all in one spot. Well, yeah, that's going to have a dramatic impact. And then we saw it worse this last time, because if you go back 3 or 4 years ago when we had an outbreak, it was along the coast. And some of it came from Southwest Florida, and it came up the coast. We were able to actually get out there. We have incredible staff in this department that procured every shrimp boat we could find to go out there and trawl all the dead fish. And I don't want to say it was minimal, but we minimized the impact of the red tide before. This time, because of where it happened in the Southeast Bay, and because of tides, because we had a storm in the system at the exact same time, it pushed the fish all into the east side of Pinellas County, and it went into all the little spots and canals in St. Petersburg, and then the fish got under the docks, and then when fish die, they kind of like help fertilize the growth of more red tide. So it took us longer to get back there and clean it up. So we continue to be prepared to respond in that way. We have looked at, we don't really have a legal recourse. The state has taken over the plant, so the Department of Environmental Protection is closing down the Piney Point plant, and they're going to be doing remediation there on that site. I can tell you that as far as what we do on a daily basis, years ago, before I got on the commission, we put in a fertilizer ordinance that limits the amount of nitrogen that can be used on fertilizer during the rainy season. That dropped our output of nitrogen and contaminants into our waterways dramatically. And if you go back to 2017, 2018, when we had testing done, the water was the cleanest it had been in 50 years. And again, if you grew up here, remember 50 years ago, you go out to Tampa Bay, it wasn't pretty. Now it's something that you can be proud of. We actually took a little step back last year, and I think obviously the outbreak was part of that, but we measure that water clarity multiple times a year at multiple sites all the way around the bay and all the way up into Old Tampa Bay. We still have work to do in Old Tampa Bay from discharges up there, and we're not getting a good flushing system behind all three bridge systems there. That's our worst spot, still Old Tampa Bay. But as far as with the restriction on fertilizer and stuff we do every day to keep the waterways clean, that goes towards that stormwater system I was talking about, cleaning out those. And we also are spending $18 million, and we got a grant for a lot of this. We got to clean out Lake Seminole, which if you know Lake Seminole, some of that north end was just muck. Right, Sallie? It was just muck. We're actually scraping it down and cleaning it out. And when we're done with that, we'll be proud of that as well.
Commissioner, I hate to tell you what to do, but.
Yes, oh my gosh.
And another meeting, another meeting at 2 o'clock.
So PinellasCounty.org is where you can find me and my colleagues, and if you want to share an email or anything. Thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Hold on just a second. Hold on. We have two questions that real quick.
It's not a question, it's a comment. I'm also a native Floridian, and we forget a lot of times how compact this county is, and the forward thinking of the commission to take on the additional penny from Pinellas, what took at least 30 years ago, has given us such an incredible level of quality of life here that would never have been possible without it. And the fiscal responsibility there of not using it, not being able to use it for operations, I think ensures that it goes for that green space, that wonderful trail, and all the other libraries and buildings that we have.
Because of the penny for Pinellas, we don't have to bond, so we have the lowest debt ratio of any county in Florida.
Great, Tom, real quick.
You had mentioned that the county has replaced thousands of feet of water piping. Is that primarily to eliminate lead piping them seeping into the drinking water?
It was more about leakage and deterioration of the pipes more than anything else than the some of them are old Orangeburg pipes.
All right, let's hear it for Commissioner.
Dad, if you want to introduce us.
Pat, you have a book?
I have a book.
No, the book is up there.
Got the
The book is up there. The book is there. The book is there. There you go. Hold up the book. That's for you to sign so we can place it in the library.
We'll give it to an elementary school and an RCD. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, I appreciate it. Watch your step, it's dangerous. All right, at this point, we have an induction of 2 new members. And at this time, I'd like to.
Larry.
I can't help it. You gotta get turned up the hearing aid.
Well, I don't need hearing aids.
All right, we'll try this again. Now, I'd like to invite our Assistant Governor to do our induction today for our 2 new members. Allie, the floor is yours. Thank you for doing this for us.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm not shy about speaking into this thing. So this is the fun part of my job. I get to induct new members into our wonderful Rotary membership. When you become a member here, you become a member to all the clubs around the world. You will always be welcome. You will have a bond with them that you would never have with any other association. So I'm excited to be doing this. David, could you come up, please? With Rebel, you have to come up there too, please. And then John, come on up with Tom. Get this show on the road. All right. Put the mic up here so Wendy doesn't yell at me. All right. Do we have pins already out and open out of the plastic? Haven't done this enough. We could stand here for 10 minutes opening up the plastic. So see, here we go. Lessons learned in my year as an agent. All right, perfect. So I also have to put my glasses on for this. So, fellow Rotarians, it is the responsibility of every Rotarian to recruit new, quality members and retain our existing members to ensure continued success in meeting the many needs of our local and international communities and to extend the spirit of Rotary throughout the community. Just think of the impact Rotary has had on your professional and personal life as a result of someone inviting you to a Rotary meeting. Today, we welcome to our Rotary family and to membership David Bramley and Don Bergeron. Did I say that right? Okay. Who are sponsored by our Reverend Kira and Tom. You've been elected to membership in this club because your fellow members believe you to be a worthy representative of your vocation and also to possess qualities that will permit you to exemplify in your public, business, and social and private life the true spirit of Rotary. Rotary is a service club with each member adhering to our motto, service above self. In addition to service, you'll have the benefit of strong bonds of friendship, not only with the members of this club, but with Rotarians worldwide. You are joining an organization with over 1.4 million members in over 33,000 clubs located in over 200 countries. By virtue of your membership in this club, you'll be welcomed into fellowship of any Rotary club in the world. I encourage you to increase your knowledge of Rotary by visiting the Rotary website, by reading the monthly Rotarian magazine, and getting out and visiting other Rotary clubs to see how other clubs are doing. Will the members please stand? It is my privilege and honor to induct you, members of the Rotary Club of Dunedin. Your sponsor will have the pleasure of pinning the emblems of your worldwide association pin on you. Wear it always with pride. Fellow Rotarians, I present to you Rotarians David Bramley and Don Bergeron, and I charge you to give them your friendship and help to educate them in the responsibilities and requirements of being a Rotarian, as well as the many worthwhile programs and projects of Rotary. Thank you all. All right. Would you guys like to say? Go ahead.
Well, A, I'd like to thank everyone for having me in the club. I've really enjoyed every moment of it. I was supposed to do a brief biography, I guess. So I'm from Northern Indiana. I went to Butler University. Go Dogs. We got a new coach this year, so I'm hopeful that we show a little bit of the Big East this year. I have been married for 33 years. I have a son who lives in Indianapolis with my 2 grandchildren, and I'm working on a book about the American Revolution in the years 1777 to 1779. So I'm retired from Farmers Insurance.
Thanks very much. I'm a Florida native, born and raised in Miami. Thankfully, my parents had the insight to move us out of there in time, but it's been too crazy there for me. But I came about, basically I discovered Honeymoon Island before I knew anything about Dunedin. I came to visit a friend in the Port Richey area, on my way back from being discharged from the Coast Guard. Saw it on a map. We used maps back then. Saw this green space, walked to the end of the nature trail, sat down on some driftwood and looked out over St. Joseph Sound. And I fell in love. I knew I had to live here and had no idea what kind of community Dunedin was. That was just a bonus. So fast forward quite a bit, got married here. Our daughter was born here, graduating from Stetson in the land next week. So she'll be moving back for a little while. I've already got her set up for volunteering out of the park. It was her idea. So that's basically it. Thank you very much for having me in the club.
I saw one of the clubs I thought was pretty neat. The club members all shared their business cards with the new members as a way of saying, this is the way you get in touch with me, this is what I do for a living. And it's sort of a networking start as well as Rotarians are. So, gentlemen, here's my card. If you ever need me, please don't hesitate to call me. And welcome to Rotary.
Well, explain, thank you very much. Welcome aboard. At this point, I'd like to move on to announcements. David, how are you doing with invocation?
I need somebody for May the 24th. May the 24th.
Looking for volunteers, so please look up Reverend Dave over there if you're brave enough. Nomination committee, still looking for a treasurer. Triathlon, May 22nd. It's 26 days out, folks. The management company is doing a great job. I've got a few odds and ends that I've got to do on my part that's coming up, but in general, I'll be getting the committee together, so those who want to be on the committee to help us. I'll send out an email to our membership and let me know who wants to help, and we'll start getting the finer details worked out. Also, May 20th, I'm not going to do that one. That is your show. We have a district bike ride coming up in October. That's something we'll be looking forward for our club to support, but with more detail as the time gets closer. At this time, Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you for a moment for your discussion about the blood drive. Good. The floor is yours, sir.
Okay. Hey, it's me.
Hey, Jeff, welcome back.
Welcome, Dave. Welcome, Don. Welcome to our club. Hey, guess what? Blood. We're going to have a blood drive again. For all of you that have been around a little while, we always gave blood. We did have, for a long, long time, we gave a bunch of blood, and then we stopped. Well, we're coming back, and this time we're actually partnering with the church. So that's going to be a good thing. So we're going to load up the buses like we did before. So for all of you that have given blood in the past, I want to thank you very much for that. For all of those of you who didn't, oh well. But we'll get you maybe this time. But it's going to be on May 24th. So you're probably going to hear from me again between now and May 24th. And I'm going to get, next week I'll have all of the, they have little posters and everything. So if you want to take some, take a bunch of them, take them back to your work or take them back wherever you want to go, hang them up. If we can enlist some people from some other places, that would help us out, because I want to get a really big bus out here so we can take care of everybody real fast. Remember, everybody, blood is something that you can't make. So everybody has some. So if you can give, please do. If you can, that's quite all right. If you can, and send a friend.
Let's see.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Oh, I sent out an email to everyone. I hope you got it. It is kind of short notice. Jennifer Lum, who's very Lum, who works here, she's the one at San Jose Elementary. It's a peanut butter and jelly challenge for Dunedin Cares this year. We have this all this week. I have some in my car. I'm getting ready to take over to San Jose. So if anybody has anything and has some with them, peanut butter and jelly or some donations, I'll go ahead and take it over there for you in Mrs. Lum's last name. You can also donate by just dropping off any of your donations to Dunedin Cares, or else you can go online and you can donate online. Every dollar is worth £1. So that's how they judge it. But make sure you put Mrs. Lum's last name. We're partnering with Mrs. Lum's That's the San Jose. And that is it, we have until May 1st to do that. Okay, thank you, I know it's short notice, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other notices? Announcements? Yes, Beverly?
We're having an international committee meeting following this meeting in the patio room, and anyone who would like to join us, please do.
All right. David? Don? Get your blood ready. All right. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. Ellie, thank you for, I know I called you short notice. Thank you very much for working us in. We'll send a note to to Commissioner Justice for joining us today. But thank you all very much. So if everyone please stand and join for the four-way test. The four-way test. But thank you, thanks, say or do. First.
Is it true?
Second.
Is it fair, law, and certain?
Third. And fourth.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Again, thank you everyone for
And
coming
will it
out.
be fun?
Will it be fun?
Thank you for coming out. We are adjourned.